Good afternoon. Welcome to Books at the Bottom of the Stairs. My name's Lorene. Welcome to newcomers and welcome to old-timers. I have not got a ton of books to talk about today. I'm in the middle of about 6. So some of the books I didn't finish over the summer, I have on my to-do list to just, finish them off so that I can talk to you. So I am reading a lot, but I'm just not finished anything. Well, I did pick up from the library Tracy Chevalier, A Single Thread, and this was an impulse pickup from, they've got these shelves where they have recommendations, sometimes by a theme, or sometimes by a color, or sometimes by a current event, and then when you come in the main doors, they have 3 big spots where there's might be something that's respond to International Month of something or other, and then something that's a bit more local, and then quite often something that has to do with cooking or knitting or that kind of thing. So this was on one of those recommendations, and A Single Thread is quite an interesting book. I really enjoyed it. It's taking place in 1932, and Violet Speedwell is what's called a surplus woman. And that means that so many young men, well, more than young men really, died in World War I, that there are quite a lot of ladies who did not get into marriages and so on. And she's of a generation where that was an expectation. So she's in her late 30s, and she is, first of all, she's looking after her mom after her father passed away. And mom is, oh my goodness, what a moaner. And speaking of which, like, I'm reading another book upstairs, what's that called? Oh, it won't come to me. The mom is a huge moaner too, so these 2 moaning myrtles are just so hard to live with. So Violet decides that she is going to take off, and she gets a job as a secretary in a different community, which is not that far away. It's an easy train ride away. But because she is now working on her own and having to pay room and board, she's really not making ends meet. And so we meet her in her struggles towards independence, and she is also friendless, and as a result of what her life was like in her hometown, she's not terrifically good at making friends. So she joins an embroidery group in the local cathedral, and they're making those devices that if you're not in a high Anglican church or a Catholic church, they're called kneelers, and so you would kneel on those to do your praying, but they make cushions to make it less onerous. So she's in this embroidery group that's trying to refurbish all the cushions and kneelers in the cathedral, and I've been involved in a lot of crafts with women over time, and I sometimes say, give women a needle and scissors, and they'll have endless things to moan and complain about. So the competition is so stiff as to whose pillow or cushion is going to be where, and who gets to do the best design, and wow. And so Violet does make her way into this group. She's starting to make friends. She's starting to make friends at work. She meets a gentleman who is a bell ringer for both the cathedral and a small parish church that's about 14 miles away. And so we meet her friends and her friend's family and the bell ringer, and how they all kind of come intertwined. We've got 2 young ladies who are very smitten with each other, and this is just not somewhere where it's just not a relationship that's going to be acceptable in 1932. So there's their trauma and drama, and so Violet ends up developing a relationship with the gentleman who's older than her by about 18, 20 years or so, and they are very careful about not letting it get romantic. He still has a wife who's lost their son during the World War I, and so she's really traumatized by this. So he's very, committed to the marriage. So it's exploring all those different kinds of relationships and authority figures and sort of power structures inside a male-dominated workforce, and power structures within a smaller enclave of women who are vying for prominence with their cushions. And it's not a crazy plot. It's not amazing character design, but everybody's very well drawn, and they're all really plausible, and the way they all kind of interconnect eventually and become supporters of each other. Is really very well crafted, and I think I read this. I read this quickly, and that to me is always a good sign of a good book. If I keep coming at it back, so I had about 4 or 5 other books that I was partially through, and I kept returning to this, even though it was not like high on the list of books to read. It was the book that was the carrot for when I had finished all the others, and I couldn't resist. Now, Tracy Chevalier, I have read other things by her and really enjoyed them. She's written The Girl with a Pearl Earring, which was really all over the place, popularity-wise, maybe 8 years ago, something. The Lady and the Unicorn, I really enjoyed that one too. That's about a weaver, a person who has designed the weavings for those tapestries that has the lady sitting in a circle of flowers, and she's got the unicorn's head in her lap, and he takes the designs to sort of Belgian, Flanders kind of area, the lowlands, and how those tapestries get woven, and his kind of love affairs. Anyways, it's a very good book, and I think that's all that I've read of hers. But I in my brain I had, Tracy Chevalier, good writer. So I would say this book for sure falls in the category of good writer, and probably not her best book, but certainly a solid, really pleasant. And for those of you who like the cozy reads, it's not 100% cozy, but it's a really good read. It's like, the ending is very nice. Okay. Well, on the completely different end of the spectrum is a book called Deadly, A Deadly Education. And this was written by Naomi Novak, and it's lesson 1 of the Scholomance. And this was, I was just at the Woozles bookstores for children, and this was in the adults shelf. So they've got the middle grade readers, there's a whole bunch of shelves. They've got young adult readers, there's only 2 shelves more or less, and then they've got a little, it's pretty sparse, but they're for adults in case parents are in there looking for a book while their kids are looking for things, so you can kind of go in, grab something. It's fairly reliable. And they've got books like The Bloomsbury Girls, and that's the only one I actually noticed and retained the title of. So this one was recommended to me by one of the people that I was shopping with. So, side note, my book club it was generated in the Woozles book club years ago, and then with the pandemic we all kind of had to go to Zoom, and so there's a core group of us that have managed to maintain connections with each other, and we're back in person. But what keeps happening, the group is quite large, and we have these voting opportunities, and of the people that attend in like human form, hardly any of our books get chosen because we've got such a large group of people who are in the voting forum. And so we've decided, in the interests of calories and books, that on each person's birthday month, they get to call the book that they've wanted to read that's been on these voting lists for so long and it's just not coming up. So you get to call a book for your birthday month, and then we go to Woozles. Chances are it's not at Woozles, just because their selection for that age group of young adults is so low. But you come having read the book, and then we go down the road about 10 minutes, and there's incredible cheesecake bakery coffee place, and everybody gets their choice of cheesecake. Oh my goodness. And then we talk about the books. So there's 2 of us with birthdays in January. one in June, one in July, and one in August, and one person who wasn't there, so we have to figure out when her birthday is. So this is sort of a secondary book club with the same people and dessert. I love it. So one of the people in Woozles, who's part of this book club, recommended this series by Naomi Novak. And it was written in, I just looked it up, was it 2001? 2021. And she told me, because she knows I don't like to read a series unless it's all there, the entire series is out and in paperback. And so I have already put number 2 on hold because I really enjoyed it. The book number 2 is The Last Graduate. Okay, so what have we got here? We've got a school that is completely unlike the Harry Potter stuff. It's nothing but bad monsters and curses and creepy evil birds or what have you. And so there aren't any teachers. It's all self-taught. And this school is sort of sentient. If you've accomplished something in your Sanskrit language class, for instance, it knows to send you the next set of lessons. But if you've gone and discovered a book that has a bunch of spells in, let's just say, the language from Nairobi, for instance, then you have to learn that language in order to be able to get through that book. And the school knows that you've come across this book and gives you the work lessons. So there's all the school interacts with you, but there are just no humans, and there don't seem to be any humans cooking the food. Kids are all on their own in terms of their own personal hygiene. It's really a dystopian school. And there's also this thing that they're waiting for the graduation. So after about 3 or 4 years, you get to your graduation, and over time, as some kids get eaten by these monsters, you've got attrition happening, and you end up with a group of kids that you're going to graduate with, and you have to figure out a strategy to get through the final room with the worst of the worst monsters. If you get through the doors on the other side, then you've graduated. So no cap and gown. It's like run faster than the monster. So they're all getting their spells and their strategies and their fitness and everything ready for this, because once they get to the outside world, they're in a world where the magic is not, it's more malignant than it is kind. And so they will all go to these enclaves, in New York enclave, London, Berlin, Japan, and you live within this enclave protecting yourself. So it's a very weird world. It has a very weird attention to certain kinds of magic. It has the premise that for every magic that you do, you have you're using up a certain kind of energy, so you have to build up this energy again to keep things in balance. And you're also, so while you're figuring out how to do the balance part of the magic, you're also trying to figure out your alliances. And so you might be in an alliance with 2 or 3 people, and everything seems to be going along, and one of you's got a great spell that protects you from goopy monsters or something. Oh, excuse me. Gesundheit. And that person might die somewhere along the way. And so now you got to get a different strategy because your buddy's gone. And so it sounds like it's really kind of hardcore. Now, luckily, there isn't a whole lot of goopy, horrible, death scenes and torture scenes. There's not that kind of gore. It's just very much the monster under your bed imagination going on. And so there's all kinds of creatures that I really have taken some interesting imagination on Naomi Novak's part to create this world. And the school itself is very callous. And if you get sick with the flu, too bad for you. Just get to the classroom where all the other kids are, because it's survival of the strongest in those respects. If you're in your bed with the flu, chances are you won't survive. So, what a book talk. Am I like, are you any of you interested in the book now that I've painted this picture? I was glued. I was so glued to this book. It was just rollicking along. There are a couple of spots where she gets into the analyzing of the political formations that could come if she does this or if she does that. So there's a lot of brain waves going on in terms of anticipating the other person's responses to her own spot. And did I even tell you the name of the? No, I didn't even tell you the name of the main character. The main character is called Galadriel, after the that Galadriel in the Lord of the Rings series. And then Orion Lake is sort of not really her nemesis, but he's a guy who just seems to be able to kill all these bad creatures without losing any power. So how is he doing that? And people think that she is like an evil magician, but there's not really any evidence for it. She's kept her particular kind of magic fairly well hidden. So there's just a lot of strategy going on here, and as we get closer and closer to the upper years graduation, we get to see those characters as well, and some of the strategies they've put in place to have a successful graduation. So yeah, it's very action-packed. It's interesting plot. The dilemmas that the characters are having to face in terms of their survival is tense, well crafted. Every once in a while I would kind of zone out a little bit, but that mostly was around the if Chloe does this and Orion does that, then I have to do this, but then maybe if we do that kind of thinking, talking, I tuned out a little bit. So anyways, I got the second book on hold from the library, just waiting for it. And I do not know how many books are in the series. Let me see. No, it doesn't show. But as I say, my friend said that they were all out there, and she's a reliable source. So I'm looking forward to finishing this series. Two of the books that I'm in the middle of is Thistlefoot, which I talked about back at the camp. When I fell off that wall, I was just on too many Tylenol to really pay attention. This is a book that needs a bit of attention because it has quite a complicated storyline. And Marie-Claire Blais, book number 2 is Three Travelers, and so I expect that to be a little bit dark too. I think. I don't know. They might make an interesting companion read along. So that's it for me. I will be back with hopefully all of my unfinished books read and a pile of books from the library coming. So I hope all your reading dreams and adventures continue to come true, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye for now.